going on, guys? This is Burrs here to talk to you today about the GripStop. I'm here with Nate Murr, who is the inventor of the GripStop. Nate, thanks for taking some time with us today.
Thanks for having me, Burrs.
Yeah. And the GripStop is a variable angle grip, and it's definitely something that's innovative on the market. And Nate, if you want to go into the history a little bit about how you came up with it and what are some applications for it.
Some of you that have read the article on military.com, on Breech Bang Clear, there's a couple other sites out like the Firearms blog. It's kind of had a brief write-up about my product and a little bit of my backstory. But when I went to Marine Corps basic training in 2001, we were initially taught to shoot our weapons by holding it by the magazine well, right? So I'm pulling the weapon back into my shoulder pocket, and that little flat there is just a natural index point for you to want to pull it back in, right? But the problem with this is that we started tucking our elbows in, and there's a lot of thought at the time that having the elbows tucked in was superior for CQB, operating on ships, going room to room. And there really wasn't a whole lot of explanation given to why this is acceptable. Now obviously, we're all taught traditional marksmanship before we're taught combat marksmanship. So that traditional marksmanship, you go out to the rifle range and shoot qualification, you could use whatever crazy stance you wanted based off traditional poses to be able to stabilize the weapon to shoot at distance. It wasn't exactly the most applicable for actual combat shooting, right? Well, we started issuing the M16A4, we started issuing the M4s with the Knight's Armament rail system. We also started getting issued the vertical grips with that rail system. There really wasn't any formal guidance given to, well, where do I put this vertical grip? What does this really do for me, right? So some guys started putting it all the way back, and now they just started pulling it back into their shoulder pocket like they would be doing with the magazine well. There's kind of an urban legend throughout the service that if you pull back too tight with magazine inserted, you can bind the magazine and that can cause a stoppage. And if you have a magazine that's well out of spec, that's definitely a possibility, right? Same deal with using your magazine as a monopod on the deck. But I started out with a vertical grip halfway down the handguard on my rifle, and it seemed to work well for me. But the problem with that is that when you use a vertical grip, like a broom handle grip, it's basically the rifle equivalent of doing the teacup with a pistol, right? It's a less stable firing platform, right? So by holding it like this, you have side-to-side play. Now you can get a real dominant grip on that vertical grip, but you still have less control over it. There's still more wobble in it. So a couple years later, it was taught to me to start using the C clamp grip or the C hand grip, whatever you guys want to call it. I know there's a lot of people who call it different things. But initially when it was taught to me, it didn't feel very comfortable. Other guys in my unit started using that grip, and they started exceeding my skill with the weapon, which I wasn't very happy about. So I started looking at it and being a little bit analytical about it. I'm like, why are these guys out shooting me when it comes to speed and accuracy, when it comes to close quarters type stuff, shooting 0 to 50 yards primarily, right? So I looked at it like, all right, these guys must know something I don't. And despite the fact that this grip felt awkward to me, I started giving it a fair shake. Well, at the time, there really wasn't any products to support that style of aggressive forward hold on the weapon. Really all you could do is put your vertical grip as far forward as possible, and then to put your buttstock extended as far back as possible, so that you increased the overall length of the weapon, and that would allow you to extend your arm and acquire that grip properly. Immediately, I identified why I didn't like that style of grip, why I didn't like the C-hand grip. I identified it because you have a vertical grip, and what your hand's trying to do is contort to fill that dead space created by that right angle of the vertical grip and the handguard, right? So your fingers are all contorting, it's not very comfortable at all. I'm not one of those people that thinks that a gun needs to be comfortable for it to be effective, but it was definitely something that I noticed and I wasn't very comfortable with. So years went by, new products started coming out, like the Magpul Afg here, right? So I bought one, I started giving it a try on a couple different weapon systems, tried on my M4. What I didn't like about it was the flat here, right? My wrist is being forced at one angle, and I don't really have any ability to adjust the pitch in which my wrist is at with the AFG. The only way you can adjust that pitch is by moving the AFG forward or back. That's the only way you can really do it, right? It pretty much takes up the entire bottom of an M4 carbine rail. There's a couple other things I didn't like about it, but it was basically the only product on the market. It was the only thing that was going to allow me to effectively do that C-hand grip on my weapon, right? So as you can see, I still have one of these AFGs on my AK-74 right here. So I started looking at it and thinking about it. Meanwhile, Impact Weapon Components, a couple other companies started coming out with a series of accessories that are lightweight and are meant to clamp right on any hole or any slot that you find on a lot of handguards. So like you can see here, you have the Magpul Scout mount for the Surefire Scout Light. This bolts directly to the slot system. They started coming out with vertical grips that bolted directly to the underside of the MOE handguard. I mean, this is brilliant. I generally tell people that the 1913 Picatinny rail is the greatest lie ever sold to the American infantryman, and that's based primarily on how heavy it is. You take a nice lightweight M16A2, you put a good feature like a flat top upper receiver, allows you to mount optics, but then you put more inches of rail than you're ever going to use on the weapon. Now you're adding rail covers to protect the rail that you're not using, and you just end up with a bulkier, heavier system. So at the end of the day, an M16A4 in its current revision with the different accessories that could be put on it, or different accessories that are going to help you accomplish your mission as a warfighter, it's making the weapon really heavy and really bulky. So with the MOE, I really like the concept that I don't need all that pick rail. I can add or subtract my accessories just by using those holes and slots. So what you have right here is one of the first prototypes. This is actually made out of ABS plastic. It's 3D printed, and it was just basically a proof of concept piece. So this is actually the first one that we prototyped, right? So as soon as I put it on the MOE handguard, I realized, oh yeah, this is going to be something right here. What I did was, with the use of my CAD designer, we put a radius into the grip. What the GripStop actually allows you to do is take a very lightweight, it's only about 2 ounces of aircraft grade billet aluminum, grip, and add it directly to all the most common handguard systems out there. Any forearm that has holes or slots, you're going to be able to bolt that directly on. The concept is that I have this radius, this general curve here in the front of the GripStop. What that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to grip the weapon and pull it back into my shoulder pocket. What that's also going to allow me to do is adjust the pitch in which my wrist is at, right? So unlike some of the other products that are out there that are primarily hand stops, and they're either forcing your hand very flat on the handguard or at an awkward angle, you can adjust the angle that your wrist is actually at with the GripStop. So that's an important feature. This progressed further. I originally had made the prototype out of a shelving bracket and epoxy putty, and I had made it for my Troy Alpha rail here. I put it on my weapon that night, and I instantly fell in love with the concept. The original prototype made out of epoxy putty has the same radius here, but it's obviously a lot more crude looking than this guy here. So with that, the concept behind how you actually use the GripStop is assuming that you use that forward hand hold, that C-hand grip on your weapon system, right? So the body mechanics behind how you're going to use the GripStop is based on having your arm fully extended but not hyperextended. So what it has me doing is it has my arm in line with my weapon and relatively tight to my weapon. I'm not locking any joints. I'm not locking my wrist. I'm not locking my elbow. I have my rotator cuff at a comfortable angle. By doing that, I increase my muscular strength and how I manipulate the weapon. My support hand is actually the hand that's going to drive the weapon from target to target, back and forth with less sway. With the AR-15, M4, M16 family of weapons, the majority of the weight is in front of the receiver. The back end of the receiver is primarily aluminum and polymer, right? You have your bolt carrying group, and that's pretty much the heaviest component part after the weapon. You go in front of the receiver, and now you have that nice long 14.5 or 16-inch barrel, and that's where all your weight is. So by holding the weapon further back, what you're probably going to do is you're probably going to overextend, you're going to oversweep, and you're going to have to bring it back. Using a vertical grip, it's not as bad, but it's definitely not as bad as actually holding it as far forward as you can, arm fully extended, my wrist is not locked, my elbow's not locked, my rotator cuff fills at a comfortable position, and I'm just pulling it back in my shoulder pocket. So that allows me, even if I don't have my hand on the pistol grip, I can still rotate it up on the target. If you use a 2-point sling and you have it adjusted properly, the weapon's going to hang right there in your shoulder pocket right there. So it's just a matter of bringing it up on the target. So it's a very intuitive system to use. Even with the gun up, you just throw your hand back up there, if it's not exactly where you want, it's okay. You can slide your hand back and forth, and it's going to allow you to adjust the pitch that your wrist is at. Aside from the ability to use the GripStop as actually something to pull the weapon back into your shoulder pocket and maintain superior control on the weapon, I decided that I wanted to make it where you could actually use it as a barrier stop. You could use it for other purposes. With the flat, I can turn this around, so if I want to still use a traditional vertical grip, I can turn this around, put it as far forward in my handguard as possible, and now I can use it and just push it right up against a barricade, a wall, or whatever. So it has a little bit of versatility. That was the original intent of the flat in the rear. But what we found through testing is that with just these simple serrations going down the radius, it has enough depth and enough bite that I can actually just push that radius piece directly into the barrier, and it pretty much locks right where I want it to. So it might not be necessary for you to turn the GripStop around. I'm sure as time goes by, guys are going to realize more applications for the GripStop. One thing I said, instead of checkering it and just going with the serrations, what you can do is, if you don't like the overall length of the GripStop, you can take a hacksaw and just cut it down, hit it with a flat file, and give it the Krylon touch. So there's a lot of little field fixes you can do to it. I currently do not have a Picatinny rail version. I just launched the standard GripStop about a month ago. I currently have a Picatinny rail version in the works right now. There's a lot of interest in the GripStop from soft forces, from big Army, big Marine Corps, competitive shooters, 3-gunners, all those guys. So everybody's telling me the same thing. Hey, we like the concept a lot, but we need a pick rail version. The ad hoc solution currently is just to basically take a standard Knights Armament or whatever brand rail cover you have, drill 2 holes in it, you take 2 pan heads. It's going to require you to go to the hardware store and actually, use a little bit of your own time to find the proper hardware that's going to work for you. But now I can just bolt directly onto a Picatinny rail cover. That just slides onto my pick rail and locks, and now I can use the GripStop on a Picatinny based weapon. But obviously not everybody's going to want to do that. Not everybody has the opportunity to run down to Ace Hardware and pick up hardware if you're in the middle of Afghanistan or Africa right now. So the pick rail version is in the works. It's going to be out here hopefully before SHOT Show. The GripStop is designed that it's a universal accessory that can fit on a wider range of weapons, right? So as you can see on this AR-15, how I have it fitted directly in the MOE mid-length handguard, you can also use it on the Magpul MOE handguard for the shotgun, right? So this is a Remington 870, and by just using the standard slots that Magpul puts on their forearms, I can mount this directly on. It actually mounts very quickly and very easily on the 870. So I'm a self-confessed, I'm not a big shotgun guy. I'm not the biggest fan of shotguns, but I think it's important that any weapon that you potentially might have to use, that you should gain as much proficiency as possible with that weapon system. So I do spend time with the shotgun, but not nearly as much time with the shotgun as I do with the AR-15 or M4 style weapon, right? What I noticed as soon as I put the GripStop on the 870 is that as much as I like it on the carbine, I might actually like it a little bit more on that shotgun because it gives me a couple different capabilities. One, I still have that barrier stop capability that I rest it on a wall and push forward and have it bite down. That's going to help out a little bit with firing the weapon. But also, when you shoot the weapon, boom, 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 click. Well, generally, click on a shotgun means, hey, I'm out of ammunition. Just like click on an AK-47 generally means I'm out of ammunition. I'm not going to take that for granted, though. I want to use that GripStop to jack the action in the rear. It's going to eject that fired casing, more likely than not. I want to observe down my chamber, and I want to see that I'm out of ammunition. Now, with that to the rear, what I can do is I can pluck out a shotgun shell on my side saddle, toss it into the receiver, and I'll just push forward on that flat, and then get back in. So that allows, if I have sweaty hands or blood-covered hands or my hands are muddy, any slippery surface, I know a lot of people that have popped themselves in the jaw trying to manipulate their shotgun as fast as possible. Your hands are oily or wet. A lot of times your hand's going to slip off the handguard either in the rearward motion when you jack it to the rear or once you put it forward, right? So by having the GripStop here helps me jack the pump to the rear, and with my flashlight, my little Surefire light right there, on the left-hand side of the handguard, it basically gives a place for my hand to lock into. That flashlight keeps my hand from going forward and slipping off the handguard when putting the weapon back in the battery. So it's very versatile for that. I like it a lot for shotguns. We have Captain Burr's AK-74 here. He went and installed this on a Mission First Tactical handguard. All he had to do is basically do a little bit of dremeling. I think he took about 5 minutes to do it. There's already holes in the bottom of this, so the spacing was about right. He just had to make a little room for the hardware on the inside of the grip. So it's not exclusively an M4 AR-15 product. You can adapt it to virtually any weapon system. I'm going to be putting one on my my shotgun for goose hunting this fall. I'm going to be putting one on my 308 deer rifle for deer season this fall. So as an outdoorsman, it has application in other avenues than just the tactical world.
All right, now that I've explained the history and the concept behind the GripStop, I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple different applications, and hopefully it'll give you a better insight to how it might help you manipulate your weapon.
Alright, so as you can see, the GripStop definitely is very versatile. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. There's a lot of different weapon platforms that you can use with it. And in conclusion, I think it's definitely something you should take a look at. What are your final thoughts here, Nate?
Just glad I got the chance to hit the range with you to show you guys my new product. You know, I said the other day to my buddy, it's pretty bad. You know, the world's in a pretty bad spot when grunts have to start inventing shit. So the only thing I can say is you look at it, a lot of guys are like, oh, it looks sharp, it looks like it's going to hurt my tender little hand, that kind of stuff. It's not that sharp, it doesn't heat up that much. You really need to hold it and give it a try to give it a fair shake. It's really easy to look at the product and judge it, but until you actually shoot the weapon, handle it on a weapon, it's just one of those things. I think once you try it, you're going to be a dyed-in-the-wool GripStop guy.
Yeah, and as we saw today with the AK, I mean, we put a lot of rounds down range on the AK, and the AK was heating up itself, the barrel and the gas tube and all that, but the GripStop wasn't. So as far as you were saying with that, it doesn't heat up at all really. So if you guys want to take a look at this or purchase one, I'll put the links down below. And thanks for taking the time out today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Somehow you can, fuck, now see I fucked up.
Now you fucked up.
I was gonna say some